It happens at almost the same time every night. You're not in pain. You're not stressed. Nothing woke you up. You just open your eyes. The clock says 3:14 or 3:22 or 2:58, always somewhere in that window. And you lie there in the dark, waiting for sleep to come back, and it doesn't. And slowly you start to feel like something is wrong with you. Sleep clinics see this complaint more than any other. There are entire prescription drug categories built around it. The wellness industry has turned it into a $78 billion problem. But here's the part nobody tells you. For most of human history, waking up at 3 a.m. wasn't a problem. It was a scheduled appointment. Your great-great-grandmother had a name for it. Your body still remembers it. And what your brain is doing right now, at that exact hour, is one of the strangest secrets in modern medicine. Let's start with what's actually happening inside your body at 3 a.m. Your cortisol is rising. Cortisol is the hormone that wakes you up in the morning. It's what makes your alarm clock obsolete on weekends. And it doesn't start releasing at 7 a.m. It starts releasing in the dead of night. Around 2 a.m., your adrenal glands begin the slow climb. By 3 a.m., cortisol levels are roughly 4 times higher than they were at midnight. By 4 a.m., they're nearly at full peak. This is called the cortisol awakening response, and it's been documented in every healthy human ever measured. Most of the time you sleep right through it, but sometimes, for reasons we'll get to, the rising cortisol crosses a threshold and your brain pops on like a porch light. Now here's where it gets strange. At the exact moment your cortisol is peaking, your body temperature is at its lowest point of the entire 24-hour cycle. Your blood pressure is dropping, your melatonin is still flooding your system, your liver is in the middle of a deep detox cycle that doesn't happen at any other time of day. You are, biologically speaking, in the most chemically distinct state a human body ever enters. And it has a name. In 2001, a historian at Virginia Tech named Roger Ekirch published the most quietly disruptive sleep paper of the last 50 years. Ekirch wasn't a sleep scientist. He was an archivist. He spent 16 years going through court records, prayer books, medical texts, and personal diaries from before the year 1800. And he kept noticing the same phrase appearing in document after document, in language after language. First sleep, second sleep. In English diaries from the 1500s, in Chaucer, in Homer, in French legal records, in African oral traditions, in Latin medical manuals. Everywhere he looked, in every culture that had records, people went to bed shortly after sunset, slept for about 4 hours, then woke up. They stayed awake for 1 to 2 hours in the middle of the night. Then they slept for another 4 hours until dawn. This wasn't a luxury for the wealthy. It wasn't a peasant peculiarity. It was the universal sleep pattern of every human on Earth for at least the last 2,000 years of recorded history, and probably much longer. And the wakeful period in between had its own name. The English called it the watch. What did people do during the watch? Everything. A 16th century French physician advised couples to conceive children specifically during this window because the body was more relaxed and the conception more likely. People prayed. They wrote letters. They visited their neighbors. They sat by the fire and thought. A medical manual from 1565 describes the watch as the ideal time for quiet reflection and the recollection of dreams before the cares of the day return. People weren't lying there panicking. They were using the hour, and it gets stranger. In 1992, a psychiatrist at the National Institute of Mental Health named Thomas Ware ran a controlled experiment. He took healthy volunteers and placed them in environments with no artificial light for 1 month. 14 hours of darkness every night, just like the conditions humans evolved in. Within 3 weeks, every single participant, without being told to, settled into the same pattern. 4 hours of sleep, then 1 to 3 hours of quiet wakefulness, then 4 more hours of sleep. Their bodies did it on their own, as if some ancient program had been waiting inside them the whole time, buried under a century of light bulbs. But here's what made Ware's study unforgettable. He measured their hormone levels during the wakeful hour, and what he found wasn't a state of stress. It wasn't a state of anxiety. It was a state of prolactin elevation, the same hormone profile produced during deep meditation, religious trance, and the moments immediately after orgasm. His subjects weren't suffering. They were in a state of consciousness that most modern humans have never experienced. And they kept describing it the same way: peaceful, reflective, like floating. So, why does it feel terrible when it happens to you? This is where modern life enters the story. In 1879, Thomas Edison filed the patent that ended this rhythm for almost everyone on Earth. Within a generation, the entire human species shifted from sunset to sunrise, darkness to bedrooms lit until 11 p.m. The body, which had spent 300,000 years calibrating its hormone cycles to a 14-hour night, was suddenly being asked to compress everything into 8. And it didn't disappear. It got crushed. The cortisol rise is still there. The temperature drop is still there. The melatonin cycle is still there. But all of them have been pressed into a tighter window. And the natural waking moment that used to sit comfortably between two phases of sleep now occurs in the middle of a single block you're trying to hold together. When you wake at 3 a.m. in the modern world, you're not malfunctioning. You're hitting the seam. The seam where first sleep used to end and second sleep used to begin. The seam that your body has remembered for 10,000 generations and which the light bulb tried and failed to erase. Now, the obvious reading of all this is the cozy one. Stop fighting your body, lie there peacefully, reclaim the watch. But that reading is incomplete because something else happens to the human brain at 3 a.m. and it's not always good. Researchers at the University of Western Australia published a paper in 2022 titled Mind After Midnight, documenting what they call the circadian cognitive shift. They found that between roughly 2 a.m. and 5 a.m., the human brain undergoes measurable changes that no other waking hours produce. The prefrontal cortex, your rational planning decision-making region, is the least active it gets in the entire 24-hour cycle. The limbic system, your emotional threat detecting region, is more active than during the day. Negative memories are easier to recall. Positive memories are harder. Risk perception is distorted. Problems feel larger than they are. Your inner critic gets louder. This is why 3 a.m. thoughts feel different from 3 p.m. thoughts about the same problem. It's also why, statistically, suicide attempts spike sharply in this window. So do impulsive decisions. So do anxiety attacks. So do the worst thoughts you've ever had about yourself. The watch isn't always peaceful. For some people, in some moods, on some nights, it's a doorway into the worst version of their own mind. So here is the real situation your body is in. You inherited a sleep architecture built for a 14-hour night and a slow, reflective hour in the middle of it. That architecture didn't go away. The night went away. And now the wakeful hour your great-great-grandmother used for prayer arrives in a bedroom flooded with artificial cortisol triggers, a phone glowing on the nightstand, a brain still running tomorrow's meeting at midnight, a temperature setting your circadian rhythm doesn't recognize. You wake up at 3 a.m. because your body still keeps the appointment. The question is what you do once you arrive. The people who lived inside the original rhythm understood something that we've forgotten. The hour between sleeps wasn't a problem to solve. It wasn't an emergency. It wasn't a sign of illness. It was a room in the house of the night, a small private room where the day had ended and the next day hadn't started. And the only thing in it was you. They didn't try to escape it. They didn't medicate it. They didn't even particularly notice it. They just sat in it. The next time you wake up at 3:14 a.m. and feel the familiar dread climbing up your chest, the truth is that something quite ordinary is happening. Your cortisol is rising on schedule. Your temperature is at its evolutionary floor. Your prolactin is elevated. Your prefrontal cortex is half asleep, and your amygdala is wide awake. And somewhere in the chemistry of all of it, your body is keeping an appointment that was first written into human DNA before the wheel was invented. The light bulb tried to delete that appointment, and it didn't work. 2 centuries of progress couldn't reach down into the brainstem and edit it out, so your body still shows up. It shows up in the dark, on time, every night, waiting for an hour that no longer exists, in a world that no longer makes room for it. And most of us spend that hour staring at a ceiling, trying to force ourselves back into a kind of sleep our species was never supposed to have in the first place.